And the most important thing is to not be afraid. The whole world is but a narrow bridge. And the most important thing is to not be afraid. And there are so many metaphors, right? That the Exodus, about coming out of the narrows into out of this narrow bridge, right, into our liberation, and that can mean so many things to us. And I realized too that that's kind of what my talk was about. It was about liberation. Although I don't think I used that word until the very last sentence, but now just start with it. So I also want to start by saying that I'm still really kind of basking in the afterglow of Malcolm's talk on Tuesday, which I found incredibly profound. And there's part of me that just wants to say, yeah, like that. You know, I had a few moments of listening to him where like the clouds parted and there was some little ray, some little flash of some understanding or clarity, and being really careful to not use the word understanding as we usually use it, as like, oh, I know something, but this sort of older way of, not claiming to sort of get anything, but there's this other way, I think an older way of using the word understanding, that's to stand under, which is to stand among or to stand with, another way of maybe saying trusting in. And maybe that's also a way of saying like how I'm experiencing my practice more and more is just a trusting in. I trust practice. I don't know what it is. Don't ask me what I think or anything, but I'm trusting that in this practice. Malcolm spoke a lot about the fruits of his practice. He has a really long practice. I feel like I'm still really new to practice. And I'm also loving all of these botanical images. There's like the seeds in the store consciousness, the fruits of practice. And then the chapter that I have been most focused on, which it turns out is the same practice, the same chapter rather than Malcolm spoke about, although you wouldn't know that from our two talks, which will be completely different, is called transformation at the base, or overturning the root. So then there's yet this other part. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I've kind of been riffing on from Malcolm's talk and Chris's teachings and my readings of the Yogacara, which I found no easier than the Avatamsaka Sutra or really anything else. Really helped, as always, by Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Understanding the Mind. And I'm really going to try to leave some time for us to chant together. I printed out just the last section of Thich Nhat Hanh's translations of the verses, the ones on practice, because I just feel like that's what it comes down to. So in a way, I guess this is a little bit of a harvest. It's the last time that we'll be, for now, talking about this sutra. And it's sort of also a harvest of practice period. Feels like this is just still a continuation for me, with the Avatamsaka Sutra being Shuso, studying what is then, what is then, what is Zen, what is then. And the deepening of my practice, and also the advancing of the cancer that I live with, which is also another deepening of my practice. So I kind of, a lot of things swirling around. One thing that I was really taken by when Malcolm spoke about the evolution and, say, the intentionality of his practice. And I don't think he would call them techniques, but I don't know what other word to use, which is something I'd also really like to work with. He shared this sort of visualization or experience or practice of moving the tangle of the thoughts in his head, and he had some great sound that sounded like the screeching of gears, that went along with that. And moving it into down out of his head and into his hands. And I was picturing that as a sort of mudra, of holding that tangle of thoughts. And I was just thinking, I have always had this image of lopping my head off and sitting it down somewhere next to me. And I think that's the holding it in a mudra is a much more pleasant, gentle image that I'm going to work with. Um, Getting that wild energy that can be so hard to cope with. And thinking too about just how amazing and sort of ironic it is that I can be so completely enthralled by thoughts that are really so uninteresting and so relentlessly repetitive and really so mundane. And Thich Nhat Hanh in this verse, in this section, he actually talks about the supramundane, which I love, the sort of like above the mundane. So another image that came to me after his talk, I was thinking about the way that I experience my mind, which is just so rarely still and peaceful. And I experience it like winds that are always swaying me, sort of pulling me here, pulling me there. Sometimes they're sort of more gentle and I can more quickly notice them and come back to center or some sense of uprightness. And that sometimes these winds, and I'm talking about my thoughts, are so fierce that I feel completely kind of lifted up and thrown into another realm. Sometimes landing with a thud, eventually finding my way back or not, until the next breeze or squall. And then I was thinking about winds. This is all free association. And then I remembered the word the doldrums, which is such an interesting word, right? Because I think of it as like this mood, but the doldrums are actually a thing, that you're a wind fire person. And I looked it up and it's a low pressure belt around the equator characterized by calm, light or erratic winds where trade winds collide. Where ships, or in our case, humans, can get stranded, stuck in windless waters. I love that image. Thich Nhat Hanh brings forward this quote, Cohen. Two monks were debating outside the monastery. One said to the other, "The wind is moving." The other said, "The flag is moving." Sixth ancestor Huyen Yang was walking by and said, "Not the wind, not the flag, the mind is moving." I think the thing that has been coming most clearly to me, and again, Malcolm's talk somehow just lit me with this. There are things we hear over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden they sort of drop somewhere. And I feel like there's some new understanding or standing under this. It's not about going someplace else. It's about staying here, right here. We're not sitting to be uplifted or up there or out there. This is not about liberation from being human. It's about liberation of having choice of what thoughts and impulses we act on and how. So it's actually, even though some of these sutras feel very kind of abstract in a lot of ways, it's really about our behavior. It's not about transcending the self. And Malcolm made such a strong point of this, and really Thich Nhat Hanh, in a very direct way, talks about it's about studying the self, a really deep inquiry and investigation. The word that comes to me is interrogation. And I think we can have a reaction to that word because it has a negative, almost violent connotation. But I like it because interrogation, it kind of evokes what I think is necessary, which is a kind of rigor, an earnestness, an honestness, an energy, a vigor, a commitment to seeing ourselves clearly, how we've constructed ourselves, how our predilections and habits and reactions and beliefs gather and are constructed so we think that that's who we really are. And so, like the crux, that we're actually not here looking for peace and quiet. We're looking for, I think, what's between us and peace and quiet. I don't know that I'll personally ever get to peace and quiet, maybe moments, but I'm getting clearer and clearer about what the barriers are and where I get stuck. And ultimately, what's keeping us from acting as our best selves. Whether we think of that as practicing the precepts or the Brahma Viharas. And this is effortful. And we need community and we need Sangha and we need spiritual friends to help us to do this. And then I think I can see why all these other practices that we've studied the slogans and we've studied the breathing in and out of, what has helped me?
Tonglen.
Thank you. Why these other practices and skills and capacities that we've studied, like patience and compassion and equanimity and generosity and rigor and energy and mindfulness, why they're so crucial to support one another and to encourage and allow our ability to do this deep kind of interrogation. So Thich Nhat Hanh is focused on mindfulness and continuous practice. Says that when we're rooted in mindfulness, we can really see what's unfolding within us as it's unfolding within us. He calls it mere recognition, noticing, greeting without judgment, praise, or reprimand. That our principal task is just recognizing it, recognizing our internal knots, our latent tendencies, and our habit energies. And there's a lot to say about all that I won't go into, but it's really interesting to read this piece about it. This piece, I think, is really important. He talks about mindfulness as guarding the sense bases, being aware moment by moment of the seeds we're planting and watering, the recognition of what's happening as it's happening, because these internal knots, the shames in particular, the fears, the pains, the anxieties, the envies, all of these things that get tied up in our consciousness, they then create these internal knots. And then He says they order us around. And I think that's really true. And so they lie in our store consciousness and they kind of make us do things that we're not even aware that we're doing. And so these senses need to be guarded. He has this image almost like a doorman who's like watching who walks by, and because we're unaware, we're just going through life and then we don't like this and we don't like that, and something happens and we're triggered, and maybe we're triggered at a moment that we're looking at somebody and then we have a thing with them, and before we know it, we're a million miles away from ourselves. And he uses an interesting example of addiction, right? Like it's really hard to point to the exact moment, like when did we become addicted to something, right? This happens, these things happen over time. And so it's really important to utilize mindfulness as a way of noticing on a moment by moment basis what's coming in as it's coming in, and then being able to make choice. Like, do I want to add this to my little pile of grievances? Or do I want to do something else with that? Do I want to not make a case? Like, there's so many ways that we can conceptualize these things. So this verse from Thich Nhat Hanh that he uses in this chapter, we can recognize internal knots and latent tendencies so we can transform them. When our habit energies dissipate, transformation at the base is there. The eyes are a deep ocean with whirlpools and violent winds and shadows beneath the surface and sea monsters deep within. My boat is sailing in mindfulness. I vow to hold the tiller firmly so that I do not drown in an ocean of form. Using my conscious breath, I am guarding my eyes for my protection and yours, so that today continues to be a beautiful day and tomorrow we still have each other. I think I'll end with this last piece before we start to chant. I don't know if I'm going to do well at explaining this, but I'm going to try. So these internal knots, and they're related to our habit energies. And I think that what I've been talking about is our habit energies. And Thich Nhat Hanh says that our habit energies are our only true belongings. Mm-hmm. The only heritage we will continue to own when we die. Everything else, our loved ones, our home, our college degrees, all of our accomplishments, we have to leave behind. All we take with us is our karma, vasana. And we can't choose to take only the part of it that we like. We have to take it all. So we circle back to the 5 remembrances. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. And I think for me, in this last bit of time, the sort of connection between I think this is going to sound so obvious. Maybe just on a deeper level, that it really is about how we act in the world. It's not about what we know. It's not about what we can understand. All of these practices are in the service of how we move in the world and treat each other. hopefully with kindness and love and respect. So I put that out for myself and for all of us as an aspiration. Let's chant. I did not, I apologize, make copies.
We'll make it
But
big.
they will be on the big screen. So if you would like to move closer.
Where did it go?
I don't know. Try the Dharma Hearts and
I also
no, that's the other one.
have it here and
Here,
can
let's
share it.
close this window for a sec. Oh, do you want to share it from yours? Give us
can do
one
that.
sec. Unless it's easy for
Hey,
you.
you go ahead.
Is it easy for you? Okay.
It's there underneath a couple layers. There it is. Here it is.
There it is. Rachel
Oh,
got it. Whoop. Boop.
So
Great.
Oh, that's kind of small. Yeah. Can you guys see it at all?
No. Yep.
listen. Yeah, there we go.
Well,
Can it be larger?
Please. I can also.
well, it's on Rachel.
Rachel, is it possible for you to make the font larger or is it a PDF?
Sure.
That might be the ticket for folks.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, it's a.
There you go.
How's that feel?
Yeah.
They could make it even bigger.
A little more. And if you did it in bold, it would be even more readable.
Oh.
Well, then.
How about
Look
these?
at
That wasn't
smooth.
You need to be in touch.
Fabulous.
Okay. Oh, the 50, this is from the 50 versions of the nature of consciousness, and this is part 4, which is about practice.
Click off of it so you don't accidentally delete the whole thing. There you go.
41.
Meditating on the nature of interdependence can transform delusion into enlightenment. Samsara and suchness are not two, they are one and the same.
42.
Even while blooming, the flower is already in the compost, and the compost is already in the flower. Flower and compost are not two. Delusion and enlightenment are.
43.
Don't run away from birth and death. Just look deeply into your mental formations. When the true nature of interdependence is seen, the truth of interbeing is realized.
44.
Practice conscious breathing to water the seeds of awakening. Right view is a flower blooming in the field of divine consciousness.
45.
When sunlight shines, it helps all vegetation grow. When mindfulness shines, it transforms all mental formations.
46.
We recognize internal knots and latent tendencies so we can transform them. When our habit energies dissipate, transformation at the base is there.
47.
The present moment contains past and future. The secret of transformation is in the way we handle this very moment.
48.
Transformation takes place in our daily life. To make the work of transformation easy, practice with the Sangha.
49.
Nothing is born, nothing dies, nothing to hold on to, nothing to release. Samsara is nirvana. There is nothing to attain.
50.
When we realize that afflictions are no other than enlightenment, we can ride the waves of birth and death in peace, traveling in the boat of compassion on the ocean of delusion, smiling the smile of non-fear.
We have some time. My preference is always to stay in large group together. If that's okay with everybody.
Rachel, can you take down the share screen?
Sure.
Could maybe put on.
And Sue, you're
I-
gonna stop recording.
I've got to stop recording and then we'll put it in gallery.
Yeah, so
Okay, up here.
the word harvest keeps coming from me. I think maybe all of the